This is IBM Museum. In this video, I'm going to be swapping in a Reply Powerboard into this, in place of this Model 60 planar. And so, since this video is going to be a little bit longer, I am going to throw myself right into getting started. And this Model 60, I pulled it down. I've noticed that it's got two MFM drives, and of course I'm interested in seeing another system what may be contained on these drives. The controller board has been disconnected. There's a little bit of smudge on that. I have other ones of these adapters if I can't clean this one up to try out from one of my Model 60s to put these drives in and see what they have on them. But I'm going to go through first and start, since there's two drives I have to pull out of here. I've got to come out the front. And remember, this is for the Model 60 and 65SX and Model 80. You've got to go for those pins at the bottom of the case and pull that front panel off. As long as you have your screws loosened up enough. The drive, this drive adapter, and this is for a 3.5-inch MFM drive, and that doesn't seem like it wants to move. And that's free. There's some, I think there's some pins or something else that is hanging up. This just puts a brace down on. Okay, just a little bit rough getting those pins past. And I'm just going to leave these cables attached. They're underneath that assembly there. But that looks like a nice little 3.5-inch MFM drive. Got some jumper block settings on the bottom of that. Get that set off down the side. And I hope these heads were parked on these, because this is the, and I think this is the 44. Okay, we got the grounding strap. I think this is the 44 megabyte. Manufactured by Sequel Incorporated in Santa Clara, California. Sequence number. Okay, or So that is a 70 megabyte SDI drive. And why is it? I wondered if I don't think I would have struggled figuring out why I couldn't read that to put in a second drive. I mean, that's clearly the MFM controller. The SDI controller looks very similar, but it's actually marked as SDI attachment, and it actually has some EPROMs and since it's a little bit higher level than the MFM, but this has a little bit of that foam, that degraded foam on it to make it kind of a sticky mess. So actually, let's see, this has that's the other side of that data connector. And then you have a control connector for that, the same as this, if you have a second drive. I need to put this on an ESDI system. I've got a Model 60 that we ran through that has the SDI controller on it, and try and look at it that way. Because I wonder if with the two drives in there, that may have been me in an earlier age going through and struggling with saying, why can't I read this drive, and not realizing that the connectors have the same number of pins as MFM, and thinking it was an MFM drive when it wasn't. So these exercises always are an interesting thing. Okay. I'm even trying to remember on the other one, I have there in the unit, and it wouldn't have come with the size of drive that I have on it, but on that Model 60 it was like a 314 megabyte, and normally that came on the Model 80 units, not on the Model 60. The Model 60, if it had ESDI drives, it was that 70 megabyte model. And good standard Model 60 planar here. I noticed the CPU is missing, and it doesn't have any floating point coprocessor either. And this small 60 case didn't have any sort of diskette drives, but I've got a cable and my little Goto Drive that I can connect. I'll only call it a Goto Drive. I say that that's just a standard drive, like came on. It's a newer drive, smaller, more compact, almost like the diskette drive for the portable, the P70 unit. And since it's a newer manufacturer, it's got a dust shield over the front. And I bought them, a couple of them new, just a few months ago. So I know that those things work. That's the only reason I say that it's, instead of me going through and trying to figure out what older drives I have working around, it's easier just to pull that one out and use it. Okay. Let's disconnect that power lead for the drive. That. And we have that one other clip, as we learned with the 65SX planar swap the other day. And I just put this on the bench. I didn't make any connections to it or anything else. And of course, I'll have to disconnect that. Okay. Up and out of the case. And that the book I have for the turbo board from Reply, they talk about the shield. And that may have contact points. Yeah, these are contact points for that shield underneath the screws as well, but since the Reply is not necessarily a direct replacement, or doesn't have those same pads, if you leave the shield in here, that has a chance of shorting against your planar. Oh, okay. And that actually is a form of, there's even ultimately pop rivets that hold that in place. And I don't want to necessarily distort the shield. I don't want to spend a whole bunch of time on video. Okay, so that has a little bit of a, oh yeah. Well, it came up good on that one. Okay. Did that release enough for them? So that's what that little EMI shield or ground shield looks like. And we won't have that playing havoc on the underside of our Reply planar. And I showed this briefly the other day, and there is a page on this one, unlike the turbo planar that I had in the previous video. There is not currently a page of information on it. Okay. Yeah, that's designed to go underneath that lip. Okay, so that lines up, and there's pins that actually go into into holes on the planar for the alignment. Okay. Finally got that pin to center. Just see how the video's going here. Okay, just over 15 minutes. We've got the planar in here. And we don't even have to necessarily put that drive cage back in right now. That was a real shocker, though, finding an SDI drive in a system that was for that had an MFM controller in there. And the 8560-041 is the 44 megabyte MFM drive, and the 8560-071 is the 70 megabyte SDI drive. That's the two models of the Model 60. Two separate submodels. And I think on this case, okay, no, this actually has a label of 8560-071. So either I or someone else had saw that drive in there, and through whatever process thought, well, I've got to put a second, I can't boot from that drive, so I have to put a second MFM drive in there and see if I can figure out what's on that drive. Put an MFM controller for whatever happened to the SDI. And in no particular order. I'm just trying to get these reasonably tight. It's too bad that I don't have that Model 60 with the SDI controller up here. I've got that in storage, but it'll be easy for me to access that tomorrow. That might be even a worthwhile video of just connecting up that system and seeing if that drive pulls up anything. I won't worry about the drive power connection. We'll only look at, this is for, and they're actually labeled, they're silk screened on the planar itself. This is the Diskette drive connection, and this is the IDE drive connection. And you remember on the turbo board, it had the IDE connection up here for some strange reason. Of course, it had the processor socket down here and the memory. And this is a later planar. It's got a better streaming chip there, the blue streaming chip. The turbo board had the old style IBM streaming chip down here. And then they've both got Cirrus Logic video, but this one is a newer video controller chip, and it even has the extra VRAM here. And that was what interested me originally in seeing this. I had this all bagged up brand new. Had these memory, the SIMs set with it, the cache module set with it, and these are also on this board. These are the 16 megabyte modules, and they called these EOS modules, and these were very common on the server, PC server 320 and PC server 520 planars for memory. And there's even a way to modify these for making the SIM appear as a 8 megabyte low power SIM for the L40SX unit of all things. It was Peter Wendt that made that discovery. And somewhere I've got an L40SX unit that I've got 2 modules in there that are modified. And I haven't been able to locate it. And I need to find it and show the modifications on those SIMs. And of course here, these are very valuable as 16 megabyte full capacity, what they're designed to be. Okay. And I left that reference diskette in the drive, so I'll need to go off camera. We'll get the overhead video, the video on, and run through that reference diskette. So I'll be right back. Okay, we've got sitting down, and the reference diskette in the drive. Looks very similar to that turbo board from Reply. And so 4 of the 16 megabyte SIMs is 64 megabyte total. Half the memory capacity that the turbo board had, even though it's a newer board. I need to decide what operating systems I load on these too. Windows NT, Windows 95. So we're very used to as we ran through the turbo board. Okay. So we're going to just run the automatic configuration. Okay, enter to continue. And it drops us into And I have had this brand new in bag for probably at least a dozen years, if not more. I have never connected. In fact, I didn't even go through and I didn't connect that speaker pillar, and it's got the battery, of course, in it. Probably a very expired battery. It's the only connection I didn't make. Just can't get that keyway in there right with one hand. And without looking with two hands. And then it feels all loose on me. And then it's stuck. I don't know how it would have gotten what it's getting. Stuck on. All I did was connect up that in the hopes of getting a speaker output because I didn't hear any beeps. And with the going in the right direction and everything, I thought, well, it'd be nice if I was able to hear a speaker. So, no, I was going 180 degrees out, making life hard on me. And I sat there for 2 minutes, 3 minutes of video, connecting that thing up. Okay, getting back to where I was, it's interesting that for the correct date and the local time, it's off by a couple of hours, but that is not bad for sitting there for several years at least. And again, always down towards the bottom, it highlights that F10. If you make any changes, it highlights the F10 sequence to save the values, just to let you know that you need to save that, and then it unbolds it now, so that you know that you don't have any changes that you have to necessarily save. Tab goes through, rotates. We see the same sort of layout as we did running the reference diskette on that turbo board. So we're under a 30-minute video, even for all that, for me messing around with a speaker connection. So that's great. I've got the Powerboard in there now in a case without too much effort, and the next steps will be connecting up hard drives to these, whether I use that IDE connection on the planar or not, and get an operating system loaded on these, get these into service, and figure out why. I mean, for all that, those DS1387 real-time clock chips, they kept the time throughout the years. They didn't really have any configuration to back up on them, but all that's pretty amazing for all that. So, but if you like this video, click on that like button. If you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel. That's all I have for now. This is IBM Museum. Thank you.